Chris? What's your name?
We're gonna record it even though nobody on there. And there may be somebody.
Chris has just joined us.
Oh, welcome, Chris. I didn't mean to call you nobody.
Hello.
Before we start, I want to say thanks for the agenda and the recording link that went out to everybody. That was really great. So thanks, whoever did that. Appreciate that.
I usually start strong, see if I can keep going.
Good job, you.
Right, but yeah, we'll have, I've got both the Thrive Coalition meetings and these meetings on our YouTube channel. And if they're not public right now, but we could make them all in notes, like in place for you guys. So, if you ever wanna, like, Rebecca texted us, let us do it. Miss a meeting, you want to catch up if you want.
Put that on the website.
So, looking back, video minutes from last meeting, they're on there for everyone to review. Matt hung up the values posters. So the first thing we're gonna go over is the proposed values. We wanna just kind of cement it and establish values. So the proposed values of kindness, acceptance, respect, resilience, growth, connection. And then there was suggestions from last time of sacrifice, commitment, perseverance. Yeah.
Kind of retracted a little bit.
So how does everyone feel on these?
Just jumping real quick, when I read this, kind of what stuck out to me from that conversation was really like a servant's heart, or like service minded, like a giving back and getting involved. So I don't know if we want to add, something, an additional one to the original list, but that was kind of the essence or the vibe from that conversation last time.
Would service be better than, we've got the three options we
Service
got.
would for sure be better than sacrifice.
We've got sacrifice, commitment, and perseverance. Is service the right word? Anybody have a word that you like?
One of the words that we use at Marquette is greatness, and it's defined as servant leadership. So it kind of like, you're about you growing into these big things and attaching to service. Anyway, but service is a good one.
So, would we like to expand the 7 values and add service? And then we could keep that kind of penciled in and bring it back next time, and we have maybe people, or we could make the decision.
I think it's a worthy addition. Let's take the decision.
Okay. Move on.
Raise your hand if you're for adding service.
Bean, what are you saying, Bean? You voting? I get that patient quite a bit.
All right, and we're right on time for our next one.
Great.
Good job.
Good job.
All right.
All right, we're at the 30K level, Thrive Youth Program goals and objectives. Matt, do you wanna?
Sure. So through our conversation last week, I realized that there was an assumption I have been making, and I wanted to kind of bring the assumption to light to see if we all agree, or if we want to, tweak our thinking, tweak my thinking. And the context of this is this last May at 4 Acre Conference. One of the sessions that I really enjoyed a lot, I don't remember the name you got at the center, but talked about what he calls polarities. And polarities are like two things that generally mean the opposite, but instead of doing either or thinking, it's both and thinking. And without getting into the actual weeds of the cultural and political divides that our nation is experiencing right now, one example is like liberal versus conservative. And in our world right now, we have gridlock because we've got people choosing one or the other. And is it instead of choosing one or the other, could we choose both and? And can we be? And so in this case, as I reflected on that the day at that conference and in the days following, the two ideas that stuck out at me is that I want to submit as polarities is being both systemic having a youth program that's both systemic and sustainable. And what I mean by systemic is going back to the whole mycelium network idea, that you have all of these, trees in the forest, and the mycelium network is what connects all of the trees together. And instead of us becoming another tree, what we're primarily focused on is connecting all of the programs in the valley that focus on youth together, and doing just the essential things that we need to do as a youth program and as a coalition to serve as that connecting force, make the effort systemic. But then also we also need to be sustainable. Like, you can't be just, if you just push all in on systemic, you can quickly, and I've done this a few times, burn out, flame out, die, and crash and burn. So, I guess let me pause there for any questions or comments, and then I can share a couple more thoughts, like to unpack this. But what do you guys like? You have follow-up questions, or what are your thoughts on the idea? And basically, I'm submitting this as a goal or objective, which drives a lot of the strategy tactics that we're going to talk about.
To me, this is like a huge core objective for any program like this that you guys are building. Because if it's systemic and sustainable, then it goes beyond any one of us. And that means it'll last beyond us. Yeah, if it's not person dependent, it'll last beyond us. So I think those are great goals to have.
And I think that mycelium network is gonna help us stay focused. That analogy on what it is we're actually trying to do here.
Oh, trees talk to each other.
Yes, one of the things that I find to be so valuable is Thrive is the entire coalition of all of these organizations, and being like big events, like if they lead them to Reach 907, lead them to Onward and Upward, like they're the ones who are set up to be day in and day out, and like make sure that we stay amongst them. Like this whole like we're leading to the ones who really are set up for that. Sort of bringing them all.
Another thought that I have along the systemic idea is
Oh.
all right. So there's a total of 15,000 teams in the valley and roughly 25,000 school age kids, and that goes all the way up to college. With the Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point book, he talks a lot about the magic third. And the magic third is, if we can have a meaningful impact on 5,000 teams, then that impact will also impact the other 10,000. And so with with 25,000 school age kids, if we can have a meaningful impact on 8,000 school age kids, then that impact will ripple through to the rest of them. And so that's been kind of a target market of what I'm trying to target with the youth program, with the overall effort of the coalition, is like making a meaningful impact on that. And I also recognize that that's not going to happen in weeks or months. That we're building something that has to grow reiteratively so that it eventually has that kind of an impact. And then additionally to mixed metaphors, the other metaphor I'm using instead of mycelium network is garden trellis. Like the structure of the coalition, the structure of the youth program is like a garden trellis, and then the plants are the coalition members. And so where the actual fruit is coming from is primarily from the coalition members, and we're just like that understructure that's necessary just for collaboration to flourish. So other discussion, we might end up with any other discussion or feedback on those ideas?
Your thoughts on this? As the one who pulled all of this.
Wow, this is great. I love this conversation. I was pausing, and I don't mean to get into the weeds of it all. But like, we need to define systemic or sustainable, or like what that means within goals and objectives, or is that what we have before us? I'm just kind of contemplating. We have the magic third, and then the system either being represented by dirt or oxygen or roots. Anyway, I'm just kind of like contemplating. I love this. I think this is great. I'm just
So-
thinking, are there metrics or indicators, like what are the steps to achieve, like what we're really talking about, like
That's
being a
what we'll talk about
system?
next.
Is that the next one? Okay. I did read the agenda ahead of time, but I should.
And to follow up on Sammy's questions, I think some of the metrics are, the number of coalition partners who are engaged would be a metric of like, the more engagement we have would be one metric of being systemic. And then a lot of sustainability comes from financial sustainability, but I think that there's other types of sustainability too. Like, energy management, not just money management. Like, if we were trying to do big events every other week, that would probably not be sustainable from an energy management, even if they were financially sustainable. And so,
I have a thought on that.
sure.
Maybe there's almost like different metric scores that you could build metrics off of, like you mentioned, how many kids are we interacting with? I feel like there's a series of metrics that come off of that, like how many kids are interacting with the big side of the funnel with Thrive, and how many are successfully getting to the direct services, and how do we measure that? And do they feel like when they come in, they're actually brought into a relationship? I wonder if that's one of the metric things, and one of them is the events, are they successful?
Well, and yeah, and we're gonna do.
Oh,
We're
okay.
next one too. You guys are thinking ahead.
Okay.
A couple other things that jump into my, oh, go ahead, Brad.
Well, I was just saying it's a long time agenda.
Oh, yeah, it is a well-designed agenda.
That's all that.
Matt, you mentioned 4-acre, and I love that yes and instead of a no, no but kind of thing, if I remember that presentation correctly. And I loved that at the time. It was transformational in a way of thinking that you don't need to be picking necessarily that everything can exist together to move forward, kind of like that theory of abundance. And the 4-acre also has a sustainability model, which is focus and capacity, like the right people, the right partners, the right skills, and then like unrestricted revenue is part of that. But anyway, there's a sustainability model as well that could go along with that. But those things kind of come in my mind. And also the deeper impact, and if this group doesn't want like the events to be the place that they, we want, I know we're probably going ahead on the agenda, but in my mind, I've always kind of yearned for going deeper at the events and at our own activities that we're running. How do we build in, talked a little bit about that last week. And I'm fine if this group decides to go in a different direction. I'm wondering if we could do a yes and when it comes to Thrive's programs and the coalition partner programs, that we go deeper. I wonder if is there a place for a yes and to exist, going deeper with our Thrive Blasts and Saturday Night Thrives and the youth activities that we're running, and also that there's opportunities for youth to get involved with coalition partners.
We're definitely moving in that direction. With these Thrive Blast events that we have coming up, we're kind of drifting into the next section a little bit, but with the Thrive Blast events we have coming up, because high school and middle school are on different nights, it allows us to speak to, life skill type things. I have a illustration, a bowling ball illustration I'll bring in here that illustrates resiliency, like with an actual prop. And it shows the stress of 4 bungees holding up a bowling ball on their own. And then you can show like how you add 8 bungees and now the bowling ball is higher with less stress. And then you can add more bungees and the bowling ball gets higher. So like those are things that we're going to be creating and doing as a youth program, but also making space for other coalition partners to do it. But a lot of the growth trajectory that we've been on to this point, one of the things we say is nobody likes to spend on more cheese. We've been primarily solving logistical problems. I'd say that. And so So we've been solving, and cold cheese being like, if it's mostly melted cheese.
Okay.
I know,
So,
Not like Parmesan or blue cheese, I think?
yeah.
Formaggio?
So we've been primarily solving logistical problems because of the growth that we're in. But over the last year, we've been shifting to focusing on cultural issues. And so like, this is an example of one of the things that we're doing. And there will be training, life skills, lessons taught, like all of that is happening and it's already rolling out what we're doing. But the primary thing is creating the ecosystem where partners can plug in. And like you've got Rebecca from American Lung, do it with the vaping exercise. And again, smaller environment with middle school or high school makes it easier for that kind of stuff to happen because it's easier to make it age specific. And so 100%, we're definitely going with the both hand strategy. Absolutely.
One of the things that I saw in the Thrive, which made me go like this in the Northeast, is we have these big events that are super fun, and because we're part of the faith community, our goal is that it's fun, but it's deep in their personal development and stuff, and for us it ends in the faith, but it's not. But it being like, if these big events have this doorway to where they get to grow their heart and their social emotional, like, they're only gonna be able to receive so much from a direct service, but if we were working together to really build a strong social emotional like network where we're all like, I am somebody who has this piece to give, onward and upward and this piece to give, making that as a like a common
I love
like,
that.
we're building that together. And then yes, come to our case, you for to build if you want to go into the faith.
I love that.
Anyway, that to me, that band right there is the goal. Big events to that.
That means it's another the age indicator of being systemic.
Yeah.
It's like a, not only collaboration, but coordinated effort to represent all. That's awesome.
well, and so my question is, in order for this to be systemic, does each of those partners also have to be systemic as well? Like, you know what I'm saying? They need to have that goal and objective within their own structure in order for this structure. So I am somebody who needs to be systemic and sustainable on its own. Without you, without Tanisha, without, and so even if you guys go away, they're still gonna be continuing that work and partnering with.
Right. Which I can give you an example exactly of that. I am somebody, I've already been thinking this in my mind, and so it would be amazing if like we're like, oh, we have fun to bring Thrive Fun events leading into social emotional growth. The way I am somebody is showing systemic sustainability is we're going to the youth groups and saying, the youth groups, could I am somebody who has doorway that's open to say, all of your youth leaders come, love on these kids, you want to teach on emotional awareness, please come to friends. But it being Northy and I'm somebody, it's just a doorway. And that would be our systemic model. Like we want more strength to come in.
Another example, well, a couple of thoughts on this. With some of the challenges that I've had with Isaac, for instance, there has to be a little bit of a triaging of the issues. And so like, when I talk with Reach 907, I'm telling them like, hey, for this last year, our number one issue with him is teaching him to regulate his nervous system. Because if he does that well, the school stuff will catch up eventually, because he's got a brain, he's smart. But if we try to focus on the education piece with him dysregulated, that's super counterproductive. And so, as an example of this stuff, Rebecca Sullivan from Priceless Chosen, we've been talking about creating more, regulation exercises within Code Blue space, where like I have a TheraTapper, which provides bilateral brain stimulation. You just hold the paddles and it provides bilateral brain stimulation, and like a little like kiosk where they can learn about bilateral brain stimulation and how cycling, walking, hiking also provides that. And so teaching teaching those like regulatory skills and regulatory like little tips and tricks, you know, within Code Blue. And then my desire would be like within each one of these different spaces, we can have different learning modules, different learning pieces. I think that because we have a very strong brand that's focused on fun, that helps. Like it's kind of like that's the sugar that helps the medicine go down. If it had too much of a medicine-y taste when we started it, it would have been counterproductive. But now that we have this like fun energy, fun vibe, like we can start interjecting that stuff. And then again, like the Thrive Blast makes it more possible. And then the other thing that makes it more possible is the increased capacity on the staff, on the Thrive staff, just to for each of us to focus on pieces of this. There's a lot. So, other questions, comments?
Real quick before we move on, I'm gonna have everyone say their name so that when we go back to the transcript, we have attendance on there. Could we do that real fast?
Sure. Matthew Clayton, the Thrive.
Cora Richardson with the school district. Samantha Berry with Metro YMCA.
And with Brea Garcia last time and
Stephanie Allen, United Way Matsu.
Aaron Robinson, 360 and Thrive.
Perfect.
Chris Bottom, Creative Culture.
Chris, you've been quiet. What do you think about the idea of systemic sustainable?
The audio is a little choppy, but kind of from what I caught, you know, I'm kind of the one that's assuming I'm taking this from the right direction from what I heard. Really, for me, it's anything that I build, anything that I do. It's really the systems in my mind that make it sustainable. You know, instead of building it around one person or building it around one group, it kind of takes a village, right? So that's kind of, I don't know if I'm following where you guys were going. Like I said, I was catching bits and pieces with the audio, but that's kind of my thought of the whole systemic and sustainable is just once we get the system figured out, once we get, you know, everybody's piece, then that makes it sustainable because everybody knows what they're doing and everybody can move those pieces forward.
Perfect. Chris, I had Aaron pause the video. Let me know if the audio sounds better, because sometimes it can increase the bandwidth or it can shift more resources to the bandwidth by pausing the video.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
On that note, that's something else that to make it sustainable and systemic. That's one of the things that we've done is we focus on designing activity modules and activity area modules, and then that allows us to like pick and choose which things we do at each event. And you know, I keep picking on your example of like when you told me about Friday Fling, and it literally took 20 minutes. It took 20 minutes to prepare. And the reason for that was we have the trailer, we have the systems. It's just about, you know, which options do we want to bring, and then they're ready to go. If we were prepping this stuff from the beginning each time, it would be like not possible to do that. And then within like the staff training and the other things, like we're really trying to hone in on making it as efficient as possible, which makes it more doable. So.
Sweet.
All right, any other questions, concerns, any more input?
I'll say atmospheric, I don't know what 1,000 level, red aurora level.
Or
that was
amazing. I didn't get to see it. I only saw the
It's supposed to be
pictures.
even bigger tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I don't mean to get us off track too, but just thinking about like if I were to dream, like what would we look like in Matsu if from a systemic and, you know, sustainability level, that there was like a coordinated, and this really comes from like expanding capacity within our staff, a coordinated effort between all of us around communication, around outreach, around partnership development. Like we're all doing that individually within our own organizations. Like what could that look like if we were collaborating
Absolutely.
at the community level in a bigger way? Volunteer recruitment, partnership engagement, all of it, outreach, you know, and youth programming and all the other things that go into like programming, valuation and reporting and all that stuff, right? So because it limits all of our capacity to do the work and to be with kids and families, because there's all these different components, fundraising and, all the things, right, that we're all doing. What would it look like at the community level if we were so coordinated and that we really had this movement at the systems level?
Yes.
That we were all sharing and leveraging each other's time and abilities and resources and skills and expertise for the community.
I was just talking to someone about that the other day. And I was like, what would be great is having just all of the organizations and the resources and everything come together for like a community fair type thing but it's planned a year in advance so that, it's truly an event and get as much of the valley in there as possible. And I mean, that would just be amazing to me, all these resources that people don't know about. You have no idea how many people I talk to who's like, I've never heard of Reach 907, or I've never heard of this or that. And I'm like, those are such great programs. I wish, it was more widely known.
So to connect those two ideas
Yep.
together, one of my suggestions later in the agenda is gonna be to point to a potential, the possibility of launching a tool that would accomplish both, on an ongoing
Yes.
basis.
Yeah.
So,
Can I say more about this as well?
sure,
What I'm hearing you say is Thrive could be a really great opportunity for us to perceive what can we own together. Like, let's say we want to communicate the opportunities to the community, being like Thrive creates this is what you can go share at this community meeting. And we all are like, I know what I need to say to update them on how the youth of the valley are doing, like centralized communication. But then like, what are those key things that if we all work that together, then we become stronger as opposed to just being like, I'm trying to do that on my own.
Yeah, and like Matt says, that yep. So,
For me, that was somewhere in the systems level though, and I guess we're talking about systems next too, but, yeah, what does it mean to like have this movement
yeah.
in the community? What would that look like if we could dream big? I think we're talking a lot about like practical things too that we need and we need to come up with solutions for in the near term.
Yeah,
But if we could like zoom out more and just think about like what would it look like if we could dream big, you know?
Absolutely.
so because we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, what I'm gonna do is jump to the looking ahead section to show you how all of this ties together. And Chris, you'll have to, Chris, I'm gonna be referencing the whiteboard, but I think it's more important that you hear me instead of see me. But we're gonna be on the last page. We're gonna take like a 5-minute break and talk about this and then go back to our regular agenda. A couple of books, when I met with Samantha and Aaron to talk about this agenda, one of the things I told them was like, with the upper part of the funnel, I feel fairly strong and fairly confident that we're on the right track. We need to optimize things, but we're on the right track. After the meeting last week, I felt like I didn't have that same confidence. I didn't have that same clarity with what we're trying to do with Code Blue Core and what we're trying to do with the very bottom of the funnel. So what I did this week was I stayed up late reading different things and like doing some research. One book I've read before, one book that was referenced in the other book, like both of them I'm recommending both of them for this larger discussion. So the spider versus the starfish, the idea with this is that in hierarchical programs or structures, if you take the head off of a spider, what happens? It's dead, okay? So in a top-down structure or a centralized leadership structure, if the spider loses a head, it's dead. If you cut a starfish in half, what happens?
Regrows.
You could cut a starfish creatively and you could end up with 5 starfish. Because these are actual neural networks, and so when you cut one off, the whole thing regrows. And so this book is all about decentralized leadership and being able to like structure things in a way that releases the movement instead of, bottling it up at the top, we release it and we can create structures that release it. The other thing, and I would say this challenged my thinking significantly on what I was intending with Code Blue Core. And this is a book called New Power, and it talks about how old power was just stuck at the consuming level, but new power empowers your members or your followers or your consumers to become more than consumers. And this is just a diagram of one of the things that it talks about in New Power, how you can move, and like all of the social media companies are examples of this. You're empowering your users to become more than just users, because they become creators and they become sharers. And so sharing, shaping, funding, producing, co-owning is the pathway of empowering your followers or empowering those in the movement to own the movement and to run with it. And so I bring that up now because this is where we're gonna land at the end of the meeting with encouraging, like, I can take orders on who wants either one of these books, and maybe everybody doesn't read all of them, but maybe a couple people read each of them and then come back and, bring your key findings. But this is the kind of the direction I'm feeling nudged with the Code Blue Core. And I feel, and then that helps us as we pivot to this discussion about strategies, because we're gonna land back on this at the end of this conversation on the strategies tactics page, so.
So those strategies, are these the key leverage points, cultivating connection?
Can I just real quick,
Sure.
I don't mean to jump in you,
Yeah.
Karen, because you're doing an awesome job too. It's just, we went from one to the other, whatever, without pausing. Just, I want to make sure there's no other,
Oh, yeah.
just
Good point.
feedback from people that didn't share anything about
Good point.
systems or systemic or sustainability.
No. I like,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no, I'm loving all of this. I did have, and I don't think we're there right now. But, talking to some moms, and not even moms, like kids recently, that are about to be done, and they are nowhere even close to being ready to be in the world, you know what I mean? And I feel like
I feel that way today. No.
there
I feel
could
like
be
that way often.
something, I feel like Thrive a bunch of us can come together and do for them as a life skills kind of thing. I don't know, put together to have them like go around and kind of like learn different things and maybe be ready for the world and maybe,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
100%, and
Absolutely.
Cause
and
I was kind of nervous about some of them.
adolescence is lasting until 30 now. We with the 47. With the November, with the November 21st event, we're officially launching our high school program. I think that the high school blast
Yeah.
gives us, the high school blast and the high school program gives us opportunity to do those things. And our intention is to start young adults when that generation moves into young adulthood. Some of these skills can be taught in high school as we stay connected with them as they become young adults. Some of them will become more open to the skills as they become young adults, because when you try to teach them some of these things in high school, they're not always open and ready and receptive. But some of them are,
Also, they're not teaching
yeah.
anything in high school anymore. That's the problem. They're
Absolutely.
teaching something in school.
Looked like Chris had a comment online.
He did a thumbs up.
Oh, just a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Reaction.
thing that I feel like is so valuable, this does come back to us returning here, is if we figure out what components Thrive is made of, like we're doing fun, but we're doing social emotional learning, I think, right? But like these different components and be like, in junior high, it looks like this, as it progresses to high school, this is how we're doing that together, and then young adulthood. Like, it's just then a matter of us inventing together, like, how do you continue that line of something on?
Absolutely.
Also youth development, like your developmental readiness, age you are to then
And you're
To
never
learn
dropped off
and-
the cliff of
Mhm.
like, well, I had it till now.
And another key strategy for me is as we develop those pieces, and like, let's say, I'll just use the bowling ball analogy as an example, the resilience bowling ball prop. Like, we use that in person at the in-person events, but just like we have a hybrid meeting now, and we're recording the content, we use this in-person training to create content as frequently as possible. We create a more robust online space to share the content. And then now that becomes more systemic because now we've shared it in person with a small group, but we've also created content that anybody can find online. Because some of these kids that live in Trapper Creek, they may not make it to the event, but we could put it online and make it reproduce ourselves. So to speak. Everybody feel good about moving to the strategies page or any other comments? So what I want to do here is I want to zero in on
I'm so sorry.
go ahead.
I had to make sure I read it to understand.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do feel like there's still a conversation to be had on the systemic and sustainable. Like, how do we define that? As before we create actual rubber to road, like this is how this is strategically working out. Such an example would be like Thrive. We have this theory that fun is a way that we can work together and reach the kids. But I think what Stephanie's bringing up is social emotional learning is one of those pillars that we could all work together with. I just started writing down like, what are the things that if at the systemic level we go, we can agree that we're partnering together to do all of these, and then we empower the teammates to start answering those. Some of the ones that came up quick was we're all going together for fun, social emotional learning, enriching our collaborators. Like I feel like that's something that we've started to do. Like how do we build each other? Communication, how to communicate in a unified way. Web and content, like is there a platform that Thrive has that we all work towards, etc. Like I'm wondering if there's pillars.
Absolutely.
No,
So,
and actually, we're gonna introduce to that coming up.
but
In the strategies?
Yeah.
Sorry.
but to Amberly's point, so Amberly, read your pillars again.
And I made these up.
And I think you
And-
have to start with the top before you can dive in at the strategy level. I think this is great that we're pausing more minutes to serve.
Yeah, and to me would be when we want people to jump into, if we want to create a starfish that everyone can be a part of this, like what are those core components? The ones that I wrote down that were super quick was fun, social and emotional learning, collaborator enrichment, communication, web and content, that could be a center thing, in-person meetings, or in-person opportunities, and then multi-generational solutions. It's like realizing we're answering the youth thing, but it's not solving a problem with a problem like the elderly and the youth. Like, what could that be? Like, bigger than youth. But what are those pillars?
Are there any of Amberly's pillars that we disagree with? Are there any other pillars that we want to suggest?
I don't know if it's a pillar so much as areas in them, but both of the areas need to have measurable data in some way. How do we know we're systemic? How do we know it's sustainable? There's gotta be measurable data there. Some metric. So you had fun, SEL, collaboration and enrichment. I missed two then, and then I got to generation. Fun, social, emotional, collaborator enrichment, communication. Yep, there we go. Common web, common content, and then multi-generational, and then measurable metrics. The multi-generational part, I was reminded about again this weekend. It's been coming up over and over and over again through just personal observation and anecdotal information. The number of adult women in my age group who are creating relationships, like with just friendships. I'm thinking, what are you doing? How can you not have friendships? Yeah. Which is like these different ages and stages of parenting or different ages and stages of growing through adulthood. A woman at our event on Saturday with U360 said, I really want to hear about the friend thing. How do you make friends with kids? And I'm like,
what do you mean? It shocked me that she was feeling as lonely as she was. And I think that that's a symptom of families knowing how to family well and how to help nurture and develop relationships amongst each other and therefore the community, like, it's kind of. Well, I can tell you, I genuinely don't really have friendships. I have work friendships, I'm building friendships, I feel like, but it's taken years because I feel like, focus has been on family, work, kids.
And I would also say for Samantha and I, we're both in a similar situation because we both have neurodivergent children, or in my case, myself and my children. And so that's also been a contributing factor that's made life itself harder to manage, which makes social life harder to manage. And so Gretchen and I have made a lot of progress over the last year, getting more relationally connected. But there's multiple obstacles to that. And for us, moving up here 8 years ago was, and then 2 years before that, we left to Missouri. And so while we had really deep relationships there, with starting over is another obstacle. And that's something that we always have to think about as people moving into the community. And I think that that's something else is onboarding, and that could potentially be another pillar, is not only onboarding existing people, but having a way that people can fast track into community and belonging when they're moving into the community.
The multi-generational thing too, even, I think that is unique in that respect too, because so many people are from somewhere else, but it's been really heavy on my brain with the number of adults who are feeling disconnected. So of course our kids are too. It's a great effect. It's really interesting to me.
Stephanie, are we allowed to share without divulging identity stuff that we learned from the steering committee? I think they shared the baselines of some of the stories online. Okay, so in the Matson Health Foundation steering committee, they went and they did interviews with the community, and they brought back just a few of them that were kind of core. Give me the a core few stories, and it represented people who were veterans, some who were homeless and drugs, some of them were young college students, but they aged out of the Thrive world. And it might be my own proclivity, but it came back to like circumstances that disconnected them from them. But then not knowing how to build a network of belonging that then supported their transformation, that then supported their exit out of drugs, like that belonging we lost my supposition or hypothesis is like if we can figure out how to bring like how you build connections with the youth. I think that's what our project really is. How do you build those connections, but then multi-generationally being like, it's not just youth who's going to answer, it's this parent and child. It's a grandparent, parent, and a child. How do you rebuild those connections? Yeah, interesting.
And I would also say, Laura, is knowing that your family is very connected to that church, and I think that your experience of community is unique, and I know that all of your friends are not just at Trailhead, but
yeah, and I would say that our connection here isn't even as strong as it used to be. It's still very strong, but like oftentimes our answers, what I heard at our event on Saturday was, well, stay connected with your kids by staying connected with what they're interested in too. But my kid doesn't do sports one Mother's Day, like my kid doesn't, they're not into this or that, and so like. There's also those societal like team sports. I spent my whole night freezing at the Brett last night because it was the coolest hockey game I've ever been to in my life, including outdoor. Wow. But like that's another community, and I don't feel close to connected to those people, but it's a place where I feel like we belong. But for families who don't have kids that do sports, then there's full of that is theater. But then for families who don't have theater, and then gaming is gaming a place. I don't know if it is or not. It is for some people, like so it's such a
and there's
multi-dimensional, but and still even when people have that connection to something, they still feel alone. Not just and I don't know how to fix it for them.
Yeah, and I think 100%, and I think that we're experiencing the level of fragmentation unique to. I think Alaska tends to be community. And I think generally speaking, the people in this room have a level of connection that is unique to the average person in the valley. Like the average person in the valley is much more fragmented and much more disconnected from
Yeah, that's
There-
probably an important thing to keep in mind too, yeah.
100%.
And then there's phases that they're like attached to the
Yeah.
right, because I have a 4-year-old, we already have a phase, and I also have a grandbaby, so then, you have different phases, and none of my friends are at my level. None of them, totally, right? And so sometimes that's hard to connect with them, because I'm like, I'm in a different phase of my life. So at this point, I'm like, whatever. If
Which,
we hang out with somebody or not, I don't care, because,
That's true though, too. So
Yeah.
I was a 31-year-old first-time mother at mom's preschooler, with my newborn baby. And, the woman sitting at the table next to me was 19. And we were at the same stage in life, like, oh yeah, you could have been my student, let's raise our babies together, without any scandal or teenage pregnancy or anything like that, like it's, the phases of life is really, really, I think that's a huge part of, regardless of age.
Yeah.
If I were to even, because Stephanie, you're mentioning like youth is a really big thing, but there's other problems that working together we can solve, but like, I feel like our culture's number one thing is that we forgot how to engineer connections for ourselves. And because it used to be you had a town center and everyone, even if you weren't a faith person, you went to church even though you hated it or whatever. And like there was things that brought you together, but how it's changed and we forgot how to engineer it. And being like, I feel like Thrive has literally just been like, how do we engineer secure attachment that reduces drug and alcohol?
Do you think there's a way we can market it, like, not as just, hey, parents, come get involved and you can build connections too. Like, I mean, there's a missed market there, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly what Laura was saying, is people are craving connections and friends.
yeah,
Anything.
yeah. And also maybe managing expectations, but because like Amberly and I have never gone camping together with our families.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, he threw it out there.
Yeah, it's happening.
I'm past sleeping on the ground But, I mean, I would consider her a friend, at least an acquaintance, that I would definitely stop and talk way too long with Italian if I saw her there, like that kind of thing, I don't know. There's different levels of friendship and all that kind of thing too, and so maybe there's some expectation management that goes into it too. Come build connections, it doesn't mean you're gonna have Thanksgiving together. But, you'll see each other on Black Friday and have a great time. I don't know.
So a couple things that pop out for me too is like there was a long time where Thrive talked about, and then it kind of like got transferred to U360, but was around the idea of bringing back community schools. We used to have a community schools program a long time ago, but it was basically providing activities in the different schools, and then people signed up to go because they were interested in that sort of thing, and then they met people that had common interests. Kind of like with what we were striving for with youth programs as well. So if you wanted to learn how to crochet or knit or work on small engines or whatever it may be, stained glass, you like show up and then you're like, oh wow. You get to know those 10 people really well, then you form these other relationships and connections built around shared interests. Anyway, that's one little thing that just kind of popped in my head, but I think that's really kind of what I'm here we're talking about is like, how do we either create those or curate those in the community or somehow promote what is happening already so that there's more opportunities or more awareness to bring people together around common interests,
That's such an interesting thing because where I grew up in the Midwest, we had a community education person that was an employee of the school district, and that was their job, was to develop community programs. And so there was summer T-ball for all the third graders, and you'd sign up for summer T-ball for 6 sessions. And then there was also the ASL class for adults. You could do ASL for 4 sessions with what was her name? It's right there at the tip of my brain. She went to our church.
Yeah.
Whoever wanted to show for when the internet was becoming big. Learn how to turn on your computer. So that kind of thing. But community ed was a big thing, and it still is a vital part of community programming in little Minnesota. One, and this all goes into, the strategy of cultivating community, connecting one another,
Yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about the framework of the meeting. We had the coalition, and the coalition kind of was at the biggest level, like at the highest perspective, and then we had the youth program, and there was this division in between. And so when we're going from 30,000 to 20,000, we're not meaning that we're pouring concrete on everything we just talked about. What we're meaning is that we wanted these first two introductory meetings to do introductions of everything that's going on, because I've got problems and questions down here. And yes, we'll make changes up here, but the program's going on right now. And we've got events in the 21st and the 22nd that I'd like to incorporate your feedback into what's already happening. And so we want to flesh out all of this, and we're not meaning to pour concrete and move on. We're meaning to just get feedback at every level. Sure.
If that is the case, when will we come back and start to solidify, these are the things that we're seeing at this level, and they become filters in a sense? Is there a point when we can do that?
For that, we need to switch the flow of the agenda to talk about what are the things we need to see right away that are programmatic.
So
that are timelines, but because I feel like this conversation should still go on. I have other things I was gonna add to it, but I know you.
I would say that at 1:45, if we wanted to create, agenda suggestions for next time, then that's where we do it. And so at the strategy level, what I'm currently operating with is connection, community, and culture. As I've done my preliminary research into the Code Blue Core, what we're trying to accomplish there. Empowerment is a word that is coming out with the new power book. And so if you guys just from the biggest picture perspective, and I think what we tend to do is this is Thrive Blast, this is Saturday Night Thrive, this is Code Blue Core. Those are tactics. At the strategy level, it's connection, community, and culture. And so again, zooming out to that level, and again, because we might need to have more conversations on the previous level to be able to solidify this, but connecting kids to the youth movement, connecting kids to one another, and other healthy community, and then connected to personal growth. That's kind of how I'm unpacking that. And so at that level, what thoughts do you guys have? Are these the key leverage points? Connecting them to the movement, connecting them to each other, connecting them to growth.
I think those are spot on. And, I think those are all.
Amberly, when you're looking at your pillars on the last level, do those pillars fit within these larger these larger headings, or is there something that wouldn't fit with these headings?
I'd say fun goes into the connection, right? Or into everywhere.
Hopefully all of them.
Yeah, but I mean specifically, that's what gets them in that.
That's the
that
initial
fun.
hook.
That is the hook.
To me, the layer above this is more like a filtering and a framework for our collaboration. This to me seems like a strategy of how we do it, which is moments of connection, moves into community, and then you're going into culture. I feel like that's a strategy, and it's a really good strategy.
And this isn't meant to be the only mental model that we develop. This isn't meant to be the only. It's meant to help me stay focused when I wake up on Monday to know what I need to. That's all it's meant to be. And it's meant to coordinate all of the different things that Thrive does into one continuum of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, he does think it's fun.
I think that's, oh yeah, go for it.
Just real quick, and I don't mean to, again, I don't mean to try to derail it, and that's not really what my intention is, but I feel like we can't identify the systemic and sustainable components on this till we finish the other conversations. So I feel like this should be tabled. I do like the connection, community and culture. I see real value in that. Also see like, where does, like, we have previously adopted the domains of impact around emotional well-being and mental health, physical health and safety, social and cultural connectedness. Then we have our other strategies: positive youth development, amplifying youth voice, advocate and communicate, growing the prevention capacity of the community. So I don't think this is truly reflective of, I guess, of the entire funnel. If this is maybe a funnel specifically for the youth programs, which I think is what you're trying to say. But I think that given our previous conversation around communication and partnership engagement and there's some other, things, this, building the social network and the web and the launch pad of everything. I just feel like I don't know that we can truly adopt this at this point in time, is my opinion.
I'm not asking for us to adopt it. I'm asking, does everybody understand what we currently have? This is the current shape, or this is the current structure. And the whole reason we started the committee was if anything needs to change, we can change it. But this is what we currently have. We also have an event on the 21st and the 22nd. And if we don't want to go this direction, or if this is not what the youth program needs to be, then I need to know, so that if we need to change the events on the 12th and the 13th, I need to know. And so tabling it doesn't address the needs that I have with like launching the committee, because what I'm trying to do is to figure out what the program is doing next semester. And so, sure.
I actually feel it's a great opportunity for the moment, because what I see inside of your funnel here is this has been the basics of how your strategy has been built up until now. And to me, I find it to be very effective. These big moments that lead deeper and deeper, but social and emotional awareness is actually at the very core of it. What I see is that you're building your events to try to follow these things. So it's almost like a tactical filter. In my opinion, you continuing with your funnel of here's your tactical way of going about it, I think it's been brilliant when it's been built. You shifting to do Thrive Blast instead of Saturday Night Thrive, to me, that's just a strategy piece of like, this fits a little bit better. Hence why I don't have a strong of a like a yay or nay, should we do the Thrive Blast? It's just a way of getting this, what you've already been doing.
What I took when she was saying let's table it, is not table it for good, but table it for the next time so we can move on to discuss everything you're wanting to touch on this time.
Is that what you were intending, or were you intending to go back to the previous conversation?
That's what I was intending. I mean, just for instance, like the partnership engagement, volunteers, and, we identified a lot of things. I think those need to be unpacked more and should be built into the metrics and indicators for systemic and sustainability.
So she's talking about putting it on next agenda or the agenda.
Yeah.
Just furthering discussion, so that we can continue and touch on everything, that we're supposed to. Right.
So I don't think it reflects, I guess, the previous conversation.
Yeah. I like what you included here on the bottom of your funnel back in terms of proposed strategy and cultivating the culture, commitment, and personal growth. I love the idea of stake hands, core blue crew. I mean, just thinking about what those could include are really exciting, because I think that's when kids think back of their experience during formative years in adolescence and high school, they can point back to, I remember going to that, we just recently got a STAR suicide prevention training at district office with all of our area middle and high schools. Like, people can point back to that day camp that I did with the code blue team that made me realize these things that I have influence in, like, I am the connection to somebody else instead of looking for a connection. I am the connection, like that's a really exciting thing to see being potentially made available for our kids. Another avenue for that being made available for our kids.
Yeah.
I actually feel like this, because you've already been working this funnel. You've been playing this funnel for a while now.
Totally.
And it's almost like it's identifying for us or some of our pillars, right? But being like with that document that we created with Thrive at Large, Like, what are all the pillars that are intending at? These are the things that define us when we work together. And being like, yes, it's gonna be the Thrive Youth programs, but it might also be this other piece. But our pillars, they're the points at which we collaborate together. We can create good work over here and here and here. Right.
So one of the reasons that I included this was when you think about, you know, as examples, and incidentally, one of the kind of one of the presuppositions that I operate with is nothing matters until you have their attention. Okay, like what we have right now is momentum from like we can get kids to come. Like we had 500 at the afterburner, and we didn't do any public marketing at all. It was just reaching out to our connections. And so once you have that, you can steer wherever you need to steer if you don't go too fast, you know, and leave them behind. And so one of the specific things that I'm struggling with as we move forward is that at this level, you know, the current tactic is Thrive Blast, which is systemic in the sense that we have the opportunity to connect with every youth in the valley over an 8-year period. And it's also sustainable in the sense that it is, we have the capacity to like generate revenue for it. Like we either the organization that we visit pays for it, or we are able to easily get it sponsored. And so then with Saturday Night Thrive, same thing. It is scalable in the sense that because we charge for tickets, it's sustainable that it can grow to whatever size it needs to grow to. When you get to the Code Blue Core piece, it becomes more challenging because life impact requires a little bit more attention and a little bit more life on life impact. And so that's where it becomes like, my question mark is, how do we make it both systemic and scalable? Like, how do we build a sustainable business model around it, you know, so to speak? And so, and then that like tees up the question, like going into the Code Blue Core discussion, is how do we design it in a way that potentially builds, and it doesn't have to be a business model, but potentially build some kind of revenue around it so that we're not just depending on more and more grant money to be able to have a deeper and deeper impact. And so thoughts on that? And then we also have the two strategies on the bottom where the overall funnel is designed to funnel kids into all of the different partner programs. And then the whole funnel it represents our communication platform, which then blasts out opportunities to our youth programs.
I think what you've built this far has been fantastic, Matt. So please don't get me wrong on my comments earlier for the whole group. Yeah, I think we're just at this pivot point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to pause. And I really am thankful for the group and for the suggestions to have this kind of breakout committee to be able to have these really important conversations. And I do think it has been hard. It's been hard for 18 years now, like to have all these different, especially the last 5 years since the programs has really taken off. Is there's all these separate things happening and separate things that we've all prioritized. You know what I mean? And so how do we bring that all together that honors what we've selected and that is indicative of what it might look like for a health and well-being prevention coalition to move forward in the community to have this movement that now that the community's ready for it. I mean, there's so much excitement and so much, and you've built that, Matt, and so really want to honor that as well. I just want to, for me, it's like all these moving pieces, right? And so I'm sorry if I kind of maybe bring in a stumbling block to progress during this meeting in particular, but there's all these things, right? And so how do we, in a very strategic way, kind of look at all the things together and just really intentionally pause and have these, I think, really robust conversations.
Would it be helpful to take the points that we did talk about at the coalition meeting? Like, I'm not even sure, I had to duck out early. So what were the things we identified as the most important and bring those to this committee strategic ways to. I feel like we've got at the top, right, our coalition, and then it's trickling down to here, and then, of course, to actually Thrive Lab. Right. Thrive, so if we're that middle piece, I think it's important to keep an eye on those things that we've identified as being important to us and all the partners.
And I feel like you said this last time, Matt, and I totally agree with it. It's like Thrive has built all these things that have momentum and they're successful, like by many, many metrics, they're all right there, but it's like we've got a good strategy, but there might be 25 strategies. But it being like, this is a plane, like, you can't stop this plane, it needs to progress into the next semester, there's some roadblocks and changes that need to happen. And being like, those need to keep going. But then being like, if we have the ability to go up just by one level, be like, what are the things that what are the things we're working together on? Looking at the wider picture, what are the things that we can strategically work together? Like this continues, and in the long run, it might be shaped by what we discover together.
And that's our 50,000 feet, right? Like that's, so the agenda is set up to address those different levels in and of itself. It's just how much time, and we were just talking about the agenda the other day and how much time we were gonna put for each of those areas, and we can adjust that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we've identified a lot of really important things that we should touch on.
I'll quickly see, I do have the ones that got the most votes, and so I didn't know if that should come here, because this is new, right? And should this come here, should it go back to the coalition meeting next week? And for the review of
Let's look at
everybody,
it
as well as like a recap of what this group has talked about?
Let's look at it around 145 when we're.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
So with the Koblu Corps, what I'm trying to do on this page is like create horizons of focus for this as well. Because this also has a lot of different levels that you can look at it on. And the highest level, what I'm proposing is that this group of people need to be culture carriers. I also think that we've had challenges with students coming to me saying like, hey, this volunteer is doing this behavior, like well, it wasn't only one of yours. There was one of yours, but then we had other staff children who were bringing.
I had a volunteer offer drugs to underage, other volunteers.
Oh my gosh.
And we had kids, staff kids bringing vapes, staff kids sharing vapes.
Whoa.
And so we've had a lot of bullying behavior. We've had a lot of sexual harassment. And so I think having some kind of metric or some kind of system set up to both have kids apply, but to also have kids, potentially be like, I'm sorry, you're not quite making the cut right now, but here are some extra supports we want to provide you so that you can make the cut. And those are just things that I'm wrestling through of if they're going to have a volunteer badge on, or they're going to be representing us in a more significant way than just, what is the litmus test and what are the mechanics? And again, I'm not meaning to do a deep dive in solving all these problems right now, but it is. I don't see a way around having some people who are in it and some people who are not in it, because we have to be protective of the safety of the participants. And because we're going to start doing high school and middle school, having a high schooler present at a middle school event, we have to be very clear that this high schooler is going to be a positive influence, and not be sharing drugs or vape or sexual, behavior or et cetera,
So I love how Matt said not just absence of the negative behaviors, presence of positive behaviors.
Yeah.
Do they reflect these values, not just.
And when Matt and Aaron and I were talking, one person specifically came to mind pretty huge, I think that was Baron. He just,
It's been a positive example.
exactly,
Yeah,
positive,
yeah.
like everything about him that I witnessed was exemplifying all of those. And so, you know, we need to cultivate code blue core and leadership in that, with that kind of expectation.
So everyone is welcome, but not everything.
Yeah, well, so,
There's some
yeah.
standards for behavior.
I mean, and Matt was talking about why would we restrict the core? Well, you know, it's just, we have to really focus it.
But at the same time, it raises another issue because Aaron and I also talked about the fact that we're talking about potentially hundreds of kids in this initiative. And so from an administrative level, how do we set this up where it doesn't become an administrative nightmare where we're sifting through applications and you know, references and
Needs
stuff?
to be
So,
sustainable. I always try and pictures, keep going, this is how we taking.
Well, and I had suggested to Matt that it's definitely not a right now thing, but eventually have a staff member who's only in charge of code blue core. Like, they are in charge of, you know, going through applications, vetting them, training them, things like that.
and the challenge of that is, you know, we're talking about roughly
Yeah.
$20,000 a year for that person. And so if we go that direction, again, how do we pay for it?
Yeah,
And so,
I mean, but in my mind, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now, maybe in the future.
right.
You know,
We need to make it sustainable. Right now,
yeah,
and then hopefully in the
well,
future.
I'm
that
thinking
continue.
not making it sustainable right now, but building the foundations right now.
And the safeguards, the guardrails.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, and I think that in the long run is what'll make it more sustainable, but the only true way to make it sustainable is to, I believe, have someone who's in charge of overseeing that, but, you know, whether that be self-governance with, you know, hey, code blue core, here's
I do think
three,
there needs to be an element of that.
yeah,
There's a leadership team of some of the older
that's what I was
Kids
thinking is, you
that
know,
have already proven themselves to be leaders.
Like a youth court kind of.
Yeah.
yes, that's what I was thinking too, is, you know, having that kind of model where they self-govern, they, you know,
Hold themselves accountable.
I think the thing that cause it's actually one of the reasons, and Matt knows this, we've had to like, is code blue is one of the things that made me start writing, can we build a strategic committee to really consider what this looks like? Cause the thing that I see that's right in front of us is we have all these Strive events and we're trying to make the culture better. And so we've got code blue as this like culture enhancement, we're gonna help people really grab a hold of this positive culture in these events. But the opportunity is like, we're like, there could be this whole program around code blue where there's these other opportunities and there's this like, who's out. Like, this to me is like a full big gamification. It's like, how do we help kids go from this big open space to be like, well, bringing you on a journey of social emotional growth and whatever. And this one right here, to me, putting code blue in this right on this, that's pretty, like, that's something that we could discuss. And this right here, like, how does code blue look at first? That's a big conversation. And being like this one, like in the events that are coming up in the spring, is it that we're discussing this and almost in a sense could table that and really go how does that fit? How's that gamification learning?
One of the things that I was already pivoting on is going back to Ryan at Palmer Junior Middle School and saying, like, hey, being more clear on what does he need and what do I need, or what does Thrive need? Because I feel like I've made some assumptions that may not have been accurate with the fact that all of the kids that came in the community would need to be part of the. And so I don't feel like this is going to be something that gets solidified soon. We do need to make some kind of pivot with bringing back Saturday Night Thrive. And so I was going to suggest to the group today that I just go back to Ryan, and before our December meeting, I have a list of like, what does he need? What does Thrive need? so that we can come up with, a way of getting on the calendar early without having the Code Blue Core complete concept completely baked and finished. And so the other thing that, so let me pause there. What do you guys think about that idea?
Which one?
The idea of going back to Ryan, like I have been presenting the school focused events in a certain way. I've been saying that only Code Blue Core and the kids from that school can go. And that was partly an assumption I was making on the fact that what they may need out of it. I don't know. So going back to Ryan and clarifying, like not starting with those assumptions, but having an actual conversation, you know, like, hey, you're in middle school. Could this be all community-wide middle school event? And then only high school, you know, maybe the high schoolers that attend are pre-screened, as an example. Finding out exactly what Ryan needs from it, because just because it's a school event doesn't necessarily mean that community students are excluded because they have sports, you know, games that anybody can go to. And so, what do you guys think about me going back to Ryan and just saying, hey, what do you need out of this? These are things we need, and then I bring that back to us on the 12th and 13th, because you know I don't feel like we're ready to, like, just like you said, I don't feel like we're ready to launch. So, what do you guys think about that?
From a wonder perspective, going to Ryan and saying, hey, here's something that we would like to offer to the community. What problems could this help solve, or what ways could this positively impact your school future?
Absolutely, like
To better understand the challenges that we're trying to.
so. I think on a goal level, getting on the same page with them, but then also on a, you know, like if we were to collaborate, what are the essentials that you need? What are the essentials that we need for this collaboration to work?
The administrative kind of details, you know,
Yeah.
safety, knowing who's there, those kinds of things, and also outcomes in terms of I need kids to do fun, healthy, productive things without baby on a Saturday night, or you know.
Absolutely, and in the context of it, I've been presenting this issue as a community-wide event versus a school-focused
Yeah.
event. Is it possible that there's not this? Maybe I'm the one that's created this duality. Maybe it doesn't actually exist. Maybe with just a little bit of tweaking, we could focus more on a school, collaborate with the school, but maintain more of a community-wide posture. My guess is, again, this is an assumption, but my guess is what he's going to say is, like, if high schoolers are there, they need to be pre-screened. That's my guess,
Well,
because that's been the biggest concern that parents have had to date is sixth graders and seniors can get the same event.
as a mom, I would be kind of curious too. Why is that? Well, and that's actually what got me to volunteer for Thrive in the first place, was my kids were younger, and when this started, not young, but younger than they are now. And they wanted to come to these events, but as a parent, I was like, that seems weird to me that you're throwing middle schoolers and high schoolers together. And so I said, you know what, I'll bring you to the event, but I'm gonna be there the whole time. And so I started volunteering because of that.
That's a challenge within Youth 360 as well. We have a lot of sixth graders at the Wasilla Club this year, and then a handful of 10th, 11th, 12th graders. And there's just such a huge
difference.
gap there.
Yeah.
Chris in the chat says, I think it would be good to know what exactly is available. We may have more opportunity than we think we do. Chris, would you like to elaborate on that at all?
Just like Matt was saying about talking to the guy at the schools, you know, just knowing exactly, you know, what their expectations are, what opportunity we do have. They might be like, oh yeah, let's do this thing, we can make this happen, you know. But it's kind of one of those things, you know, we don't know till we ask, and move forward with that. Because, you know, one of our big things, like historically, you know, I'm fairly new to being a part of Thrive, but my kids attended some of the Thrive stuff, and one of the strengths was the larger community events. And to me, it seems less confusing if we can do more of the larger meetings, even if they're separated by age. It seems like it'd be less confusing to the kids and the parents, instead of them going, can I go to this one? Can I not go to this one? What's this one? What's the difference of this one? It feels a little bit to me like it would create a little bit of a disjointed and kind of confusing thing to know what events they can take their kids to or not take their kids to, if that makes any sense.
100%. And I also think like, even if I want to be very mindful that we don't, over commit ourselves. But like, let's say that we have, let's say that we have 400 people at this event and we average $15 a piece. That's $6,000. Our regular output for staff costs is like between $3,000 and $4,000. We could also potentially delete the free Thrive 5 that we're currently bundling with the ticket price, and that opens up another $1,200 worth of positive revenue. And so we have a lot of wiggle room, but the key of all of this is selling out. If we restrict ourselves, kind of paint ourselves into the corner by just focusing on one school, I could see our numbers going way down potentially at an event. And so I think we could potentially sweeten the deal by talking about doing this as a benefit event for the school. And we could potentially have set ourselves up for a win-win. The biggest thing I need out of it is I need to be able to get on the calendar a year ahead of time and not a couple hundred days ahead of time, because and this is kind of the same direction that we're going with the 5th grade field days, is we don't go through the district office to rent the building to do the 5th grade field days. We partner directly with the school. Now, that's kind of apples to oranges because we don't have kids from other schools going to those.
Right, yeah, during the school day, during the instructional day.
But that model has proven itself, fairly well. And so,
What would be the shortest amount of time? You said 90 days doesn't work. They're saying a year doesn't work. Is there some
Well,
in the middle between
a
that we
year,
could propose to the
6
school
months.
district?
6 months.
a year does work with the principal, because like Ryan and I already have a tentative agreement, not only to this February, but he and I are already talking about next October. And so the key difference is like in the past, what we were doing was we were an entity renting the building for our entity to host an event. The key pivot that we've made is now we are an entity that's partnering with the school to host an event for the school. And that's what puts us in the front of the line instead of the back of the line.
Yeah.
With that pivot, I was initially assuming we would need to restrict the attendance to just the kids that are, go to that school.
I would think that if you frame it in the correct way, when you talk to him and just say, hey, allowing kids, the same age group of kids from other schools
Right.
to come to this event, we will in turn be able to increase our revenue, and which will help you in the long run.
And I have a strong enough relationship with him. I think we can work on prototyping it together. What I'm asking for you guys for is just your blessing to go have that second conversation,
I say go for it.
collect more information, bring it back to you guys for locking it in.
So, any questions for Matt, like what that looks like, the conversation? We have about 10 more minutes, guys.
Good job.
I actually had, yes, thank you for,
Yeah, thank you. Good
Oh,
job.
wait. Any questions for Matt, like specifically to this,
Matt, I
like
think
this conversation with
Yeah.
Ryan?
specifically, and I was an assistant principal a long time ago, and so if I were to have somebody like Matt come to my school, my main concerns would be, of course, facility use wise, are you gonna care for my stuff? Yes, you are. But also safety wise, opening it up to the community, are my students going to be safe with kids that we don't know? And again, I think that the answer there can be yes, but it's just providing those assurances and those structures and those different things, because there's a liability issue, but there's also the issue of like, you just don't wanna have to worry about liability because you don't want things to happen. So, and also I think compared to 20 years ago when I was an administrator, our community has become a lot more fluid in terms of people who are transient between different parts of the valley, but also between, like, our homeschool correspondence program is our largest enrollment in the district. We have 3,000 students at that school as opposed to Colony High, which is our number 2 with about like right at 1,000 students. So Maxwell Central is 3 times the size student enrollment wise as a 9 through 12. And so there's just a lot of fluidity. And so I think it would be great, to work with Ryan to figure out what he as a principal would be concerned with in terms of safety and well-being of his middle schoolers and making sure that those needs are met.
Right.
So that we can allow for the fluidity of our community to come and go at community events.
Absolutely. We also have a decent, I 100% agree. We also have a decent amount of, traffic from Anchorage coming to the event.
That's interesting too.
We have a growing amount of.
We don't care about them.
I'd like to see us prioritize Matsu kids. if we
Uh-huh.
have-
And we,
Unless we need to sell more tickets or something.
we've always intended to prioritize Matsu. It's just because of what we're doing, it draws kids. I mean, and like, when I say Anchorage,
You're talking Eagle River and Shubiac.
yeah, I mean, Gretchen drives 20 minutes to Mirror Lake. She
Yeah.
teaches in the Anchorage district. And so some of the kids, like within our valley, drive further than some of the kids from.
I drive my kids drive half an hour from Settlers Bay to Colony every day.
Oh my God.
Well, and I think that this just validates, you've talked at previous meetings about, young adults looking for safe and sober alternatives to
Right.
connection and community engagement. And, Anchorage obviously needs to provide those
Right.
opportunities as well, but also my cousin lives in Anchorage, or, my friend is just moved there last winter, or my dad's in the military, like, there's all these reasons why that would be too, I'm sure, if we were to really dive in and figure out.
Word of mouth.
And
Yeah.
so, but I mean, yeah, it sounds like,
Yeah.
you have good things to discuss with Brian.
And I feel like, to be truthful, by you splitting junior high and high school and coming in with that proposal, it's actually taking the code blue and in a sense adding gas to it at its
That's true.
baseline. It's
Mhm.
already, there's these protective factors.
Yeah.
Like, part of that strategy is splitting apart.
The senior high kids are becoming the mentors, the mentor culture carriers.
Yeah.
And Amberly and I have gone back and forth with this a little bit, but I do think that prototyping Code Blue within high school makes sense for a couple of reasons. Number one, those are the kids I need to screen the fastest to bring them to a middle school event. Number two, if you get high schoolers to buy in, middle schoolers are an easy sell. But if it populates too fast with middle schoolers, you might squeeze out your high schoolers.
That's so true, yeah.
And so I'd also like to propose that as we figure out what Code Blue is and we prototype it working directly with our high schoolers. We get their buy-in first and then we fold middle schoolers in once it's got momentum.
I think you're developing a both and there too, these older wiser, more life experience because they're 15 instead of 13. I say that to my cheek. That are, becoming the model, the mentors, at the same time as developing these kids with that same skill set so they can kind of grow together, yeah.
About 5 more minutes. So yes, on him
Yeah.
having further conversations with Brian.
2 thumbs up, yes,
Yes.
yeah, I love it.
So Amberly, and do you have something else?
Well, what I feel like is what you're going to go ask him about is, does this structure work? And is his like first trial, like, will this work? And to me, this feels really solid, like,
It feels
in my view, it's like, run on this, like this starting to split into two, and it kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off of like, we have to answer all the things.
So
right then.
let me clarify something real quick, because I'm
Sure.
not sure that we're on the same page.
Sure.
To clarify something, we've got the Thrive Blast event where we're doing high school, middle school, okay? And then this with Ryan would be a Saturday Night Thrive event. But it would be hosted at a middle school, so it would also become middle school only because it's at a middle school.
Uh-huh.
With the potential carve out for high school volunteers that are pre-screened.
Mhm.
But this wouldn't, just to clarify, this isn't a Thrive Blast, it's a Saturday Night Thrive, meaning more event areas. But still maintaining the middle school, high school, division, because
The
I would,
idea that we're starting to do this. And that's the core thing.
Sounds
that
like
we're
for
starting to
Thrive
do.
Blast and Saturday Night Thrive.
Mhm.
and when we,
Is that what I'm hearing?
when we host Saturday Night Thrive at a high school, then it would be high school only. And that's a possibility in the future as well. But right now, our first step toward high school, middle school is Thrive Blast, because we can set up once, tear down once, and have 2 events. And so that's a way of keeping the high schoolers involved until we get to the place where we can do Saturday Night Thrive for high schoolers. So in the 5 minutes
We
that,
haven't been at any high schools, have we, except for Reddington?
Houston,
Houston, okay.
Oh, I'll go get it. I'll go diving.
I got more,
Yeah.
I got more over here.
Got a perfect
So
place to have.
guys, as, this is not a discussion point as much as it is, look at her. That's why we need the strengths of everybody. So,
Agility.
as this is a thought to plant in your head for you to chew on, you know, over the next month, like what would this look like? This isn't like I'm asking for your decision, okay? I'm planting an idea. Because as I chewed on this since we talked on Monday, like, hey, how do we develop for the bottom of the funnel, how do we develop a sustainable business model? This is what I came back to. And to reference this, the annual plan and all of these strategies, every strategy that I have a star by here would potentially benefit from what I'm gonna suggest. What I think we should explore in the weeks to come is prototyping basically a Thrive app, using our website to prototype it. And the app would connect families together in neighborhood circles. And then it would also feed them content from their city and from borough-wide. We can get more into the nuts and bolts of what this would look like, but essentially, this connects the dots on a lot of the things that you were talking about earlier and Amberly was talking about, Samantha was talking about. It brings all of this together into a virtual space that, you know, as like, using me for an example, when I joined this app, it would put me in the Swanson Sheridan neighborhood because that's the school right next to me, okay? And then we would develop volunteers who planned like grade school activities for that neighborhood. Then, since I live in Palmer, if we're Thrive's hosting swimming at Palmer Pool, it would push that to me. And then since I live in the Matsu Borough, when we're doing a Saturday Night Thrive, it would push that to my family. And then in addition to that, all of these other objectives could potentially be accomplished much more efficiently with this. One of the challenges that we're dealing with, and this goes back to the spider versus the starfish, if we bottleneck all of the activity that we're trying to accomplish through, you know, myself, Allison, Aaron, and Courtney, like we have limited capacity. And if we don't want to pay out the nose, we're always gonna have limited capacity. But if we use our limited capacity to create an environment that gives us more of a you know, this reality, instead of bottlenecking everything, then I think we could potentially accomplish it. The other thing that would be, you know, I've bounced this off of a lot of families and a lot of parents. And the reason I'm emphasizing families, parents, by the way, I don't think we should be inviting Thrive students to join this. And the reason for that is, we have a wide spectrum of ideology represented by our coalition partners. And in a culture war moment, some of our families don't agree with the values of some of the other, you know, organizations. And so the parents would become then the filter for the opportunities that we're inviting the families to. And so that it hopefully gets us out of that culture war, you know, debate. And we just say, we're asking families to join this, and we're asking families to filter the opportunities based on, you know, your values. It's a way of setting up, and I deleted the little empowerment thing, but when we talk about empowering our followers, it's a way of creating an environment and creating an ecosystem where that can become, again, can get released as a movement and not just get bottled up by what the program staff could do, because it also allows us, if we can get sufficient eyeballs on it, and the youth program's grown from, you know, to 3,500 families over the last 5 years. We were adding like around 1,000 families per year. We can go back to adding that many if we have clear ways of onboarding them and clear ways of engaging them. We're currently spending north of $5,000 a year on the texting platform. I want to continue to use the texting platform for events, but I want all of the activity stuff to not get bottlenecked through the texting platform. I want to potentially release all of the activities to get both planned and promoted just through that platform. And then finally, we've had sponsorships, we've had financial sponsorships in the past. I think that there's a lot of potential for financial sponsorships. But if our financial sponsors knew this was the number of eyeballs that we currently have, this is what we're projecting if we open this up to every neighborhood in the valley. And also doing some, you know, ongoing content like a podcast or something like that. And I feel like one of my roles is shifting more to like content creation instead of just all, you know, 100% focus on event management, because that's where I think we can really scale to reach everybody, and we can, and it also has the potential to be very sustainable from a sponsorship perspective. And these books that I'm recommending, Starfish and the Spider, New Power, both of these represent the discussion that needs to be had if we want to go that direction. And so, clarifying questions on that, again, not asking anybody to make any decisions right now, but just clarifying questions on like what I'm saying. Or thoughts.
I love the idea of the app, because things that, and it's, like I told Matt when we were talking about it on Monday, like, that to me just makes sense, because I mean, you go on Facebook and you can find your neighborhood in a group. There's separate groups for separate neighborhoods. And then there's a group for community events. There's a group, you know, and so the app would make sense because each neighborhood, you can make connections there and build connections, host events for your neighborhood. A mom can go on the app, on the Thrive app, and say, hey, I'm gonna host a kid and mom paint night at my house on this date, you know, and so it'd be a way for the parents in that neighborhood to communicate with each other, as well as hearing Thrive blasts, like, or Thrive news and, you know, things like that.
And just to clarify something, when we talk about website versus app, just to clarify something, Chris and I have talked a little bit about this, because Chris is also, he's our music lab lead, but he also manages the website for the United Way, and all the websites, him and Pat Donaldson. And so just to clarify something, what I'm suggesting is prototyping it in the sandbox of our website. And then once we know exactly what the functionality needs to look like, then we go after an app developer to develop an actual app that's just what we need, because we figured out exactly what we need by prototyping it on the website, which is cheaper and easier. It's cheaper and easier to make changes on a website than it is an app. And so once we go from sandbox or laboratory to
What I'm hearing in this is the Thrive Youth programs focused on in-person opportunities as its primary vehicle for change. And what I'm hearing you say is it's almost like creating more effectiveness by leveraging over to the virtual world and using the virtual world as another point where you bring people on this journey. I feel like that's common sense in the long run, being like, so much of our life is virtual. How do we actually cash into that? To me, that's kind of like, oh, yeah. As far as the strategy, just at the bottom side of the funnel, I actually think it's a strategy for like, it's in person, it's virtual, like it's the whole funnel. It kind of ends up all of it.
So when you go back to the funnel, the Thrive Blast is what onboards them to the communication platform. And so then the whole funnel is represented by our communication platform. What I'm primarily suggesting is that we go from just text and email to an entire platform. We would be primarily onboarding them into the app, potentially. I mean, we will have to see how it plays out. using the Thrive events, the Thrive Blast, the Thrive Saturday Night Thrive, and driving them to join us here so that they can join us in their own neighborhood at a granular level, because we have the capacity with Thrive Blast and Saturday Night Thrive to onboard enough of the valley that we can start building these neighborhoods. And then even within our own program staff, we've got, Aaron that lives out in Connect, we've got,
That works for you.
Courtney who lives in the Butte, and so we could potentially prototype neighborhoods in some of those outlying areas. Once we got it prototyped, then we open up more neighborhoods, and we also have the ability to recruit and screen volunteers, recruit and train potentially contractor staff for staffing these different things. And then you're using the virtual space, so like, you're using social, like a social media type engine, but it's to drive connection in real life. It's to drive, let's go hike the Butte together. And so we have these positive feedback loops already set up with Thrive Blast and Saturday Night Thrive, and then using that momentum to drive this online engagement and creating tons. The other things that, in addition to these real life connections that are available, we can create and put out a ton of content on this platform that would also, drive all of these goals.
All right,
Right.
so.
And that was kind of my thought too, Matt. You can chime in on this too. Like with the app, is it can be, you're saying put other resources in it, like virtual event trainings that are just up that are available for Blue Crew. There could be a sign in for Blue Crew members specifically in the app. There could be videos that parents can access that give better explanation of what Thrive is doing, what our events are, things like that. Just all that resources that just answer a lot of questions, but then also give a lot of resources at the same time to our different groups.
Absolutely. And on that note, there's a lot of life skill training videos that are already out there. We don't have to, like, yes, we're develop our own, but there's a tremendous amount out there that like teaching adulting skills and teaching these different things that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just, put a bunch of that content on there from these different places. So I've got some logistical discussion to come up in a couple minutes. Any other thoughts or feedback or questions to these things?
Any suggestions for things that you'd like to see on the next agenda?
I have concerns.
Sure.
I have a comment after you.
Absolutely. Do you wanna go first?
No, you go
or-
ahead.
Okay, my concern is this. I feel like we could be like, okay, here's the next half of our year, let's build our events, junior high and high school. Let's develop an app. As one of like the key, like, this is our goal, is to build an app. I feel like if we move ahead with the junior high and high school events, but then go that one level higher where we're like, okay, what are the things that we're doing together? And ask the question, how do we do this in person and how do we do this virtually? Like, that's gonna bring a good frame for our app. We'll be like, okay, this makes sense as to what we're building in this app. But then it gives us the ability to be like, how are we gonna answer our things that we really wanna do with the app? Like, the app is almost like the product of us sitting just one level higher for a little bit and then going, how do these goals kind of get answered by virtual and in person?
And that's a great tee up to why I feel like we need to do a both and with like the biggest picture thinking, but then the in the trenches thinking, and then we're going back and forth. Stephanie?
Just real quick, and I know we're talking about prototyping and exploring all this as a build it, innovation solution for us, which I totally love. I guess I just want to explore more around website versus app. We built an app, nobody used it at all. They all went to the website. So just like knowing, our customer base and our consumer base, or, our community, a lot of people don't have the storage room in their phones for an app that takes up a lot of space. Anyway, just want to put those ideas out there about like what makes the most sense. And then a couple other things came up of like, maybe we could pilot even getting feedback from the admins of neighborhood Facebook groups. Like, have them be involved in this process, or can both coincide together where they're all living at the same time. We have either a website or app, and also all the admins of the neighborhood Facebook groups are on board, and they're promoting on social media as well. And then, I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but, you know, Iceland has the leisure card where they provide the stipends for people to do the activities. There is a website, and you select your neighborhood, you select your age group of your child, and what they're interested in, and everything, populates of what are the options in their communities. And so
Around here? Or?
in Iceland, in Reykjavik, yeah.
It's a quick commute, but yes.
Yeah.
That's a great.
So just thinking about like, well, are there other things out there that we can even look at that they already exist? Just for us to look at and consider as it's being built, and we have continued discussions about it.
We had a presentation from Care Portal this fall too, and I think it's a similar concept, but it's meeting a very different need. Have you heard of Care Portal with Beacon Hill ladies?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really cool. So basically, different stakeholders can input needs, like, you know, at Goose Bay Elementary, this family, their house burned down and they need, you know, new beds for all 4 children. They input the need, and then a group from the community meets that need, and it's pretty quick, and it's a national thing that they're doing. It's really cool, but it might, like,
There may be
as,
ways of interfacing that.
well, not even interface, but even getting some inspiration to structure, like, for me, a spreadsheet, I need to know, do you want that information across the top or down the side? You know, it makes a big difference. Those kinds of things, that might be a good thing to kind of
Mhm.
look at, the Icelandic pop-it-up thing, and then also Care Portal, you know, just looking at comparisons to see if there's
Yeah.
things that have been created that we can steal.
That's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
idea, cause I go look for stuff for my kids and I'm like, I can't, you have to go here and you have to go here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't find just
Well,
one
and then-
place for everything.
And then you
Yeah,
stumble across
Sure.
like an event and you're like, I was actively looking for events
Yeah.
and I never saw this anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
So-
it's not what I have anymore, like.
I know.
In the 5 minutes that remains, a question and a suggestion, I guess I'll do suggestion first. With a rough outline, I think, I wanna suggest that we spend like roughly half of the meeting, biggest picture perspective, you know, talking about the biggest picture goals. And then roughly half of the meeting talking about like in the trenches, because we're in a situation where like, these things are continuing to happen.
Mhm.
And I'm not expecting this stuff gets solidified in weeks or months. I think it's gonna take, you know, probably a good chunk of all next semester to lock a lot of this in. And I want to reiterate the fact that I am bringing to you guys maximum flexibility. But I'm also trying to like, as we build this plane in flight or rebuild this plane in flight, I'm also trying to give passengers on the plane the smoothest ride possible. And so that's where it also comes in, is like, if there's gonna be large pivots coming up, like I just want time to plan and adjust for that. And so having the biggest picture conversations and having the in the trenches conversations roughly half and half of the time. Because what I'm not meaning to leave the big picture behind. What I'm meaning is like, this is what's currently happening at the granular level. And if there's things that need to be vetoed or things that, you know, we don't like or we don't want, like because of the feedback I've already gotten, it's changed my paradigm when I go back to Ryan as an example. And so that's suggestion number one. Question number two is 2 hours sufficient? Because if that's the way that we divide it, we've got roughly 1 hour to talk big picture, 1 hour to talk granular. Is 2 hours sufficient? Because I'm also trying to be mindful of your time. And then,
I think it's sufficient to me, but I think that when we talk, we need to, as far as agenda goes, this was basically outlining talking points and everything we outlined is important and it's, so of course it's gonna bring up opinions and thoughts and discussions. So maybe going forward at the top of the agenda, just make a bullet point list. These are the points that we have to hit. These are the questions I need solved. And then that way, if you're gonna talk big picture and stuff, we don't get lost in the big picture. We still move back to those bullet points and say, we need to answer these questions for Matt before the end of this meeting, like,
Right.
it would be helpful for me if I knew exactly which points you absolutely need me to hit. Or which questions you need answered, or what you want our opinions on.
I think 2 hours is also sufficient, Matt, just because of, you know, capacity for
Absolutely.
the day, but also, you know, like. As the ultimate leader of all this work, it's nice, if I were you, I'd be like, okay, I got this feedback, I got this information, now I need to like, nobody talk to me, I need to think it through.
Yeah.
Because I have information nobody else in the room has, you know, it's just the nature of what being the leader is, yeah, and so. More lighter reps, if you're a woman over 40 and trying to get back into weight training, instead of trying to go for the 250-pound deadlift rep.
Yeah,
100%.
totally.
More metaphors, huh?
I 100% agree, and so. One of the challenges as we dismiss, and we have one other question about December 10th. Are we good
We
with
have-
an extra meeting on December 10th?
We have a meeting next week too that we need to talk about.
And then, where I'm at right now is we have enough with what's currently on the program team agenda for what Thrive is currently doing. My problem isn't having enough on my plate.
No.
My problem is figuring out how to manage what we already have. Now, what I dream of is releasing a movement. And I believe that some significant structural changes to how our program functions. And so one of the things that I just want you guys to know is gonna be a little bit triggering for me is if we add more stuff to the list as things are currently structured, that's triggering. If we dream of the future and adding more stuff, that's great, but just understand this metamorphosis that's gonna need to take place.
Yeah.
Before we're able to release the full capacity of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do right now is to zero in on what are the most important things to focus on to keep the momentum going as we go through this messy middle of transforming into a different structure.
And that's where I suggested putting it at the beginning of the agenda.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
And also, meeting next week, I will not be able to make it. So
Same.
I have a conference in Anchorage that.
For the coalition meeting,
Oh, yeah, that
That's
last after school.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I do wanna ask, like, process wise, how does all this information go back and is presented and how are we recapping everything?
Yeah.
Who, you know, who's gonna do that and how does that look like? Cause this all, I think needs to go back. You know, we've met twice and there's a meeting next week. What did that look like? And then I just wanna throw out for metaphors and stuff. And then a yes, and that the spider can build the web for the whole entire network. And it may not have all the power, but it could build the web.
Oh.
So anyway, just gonna throw that out there.
well,
Like
and just a spoiler note for the book, they talk about hybrid structures. It doesn't have to be an either or structure, you can
Yeah.
use both and with this as well. And so something else that we didn't mention is that, Aaron, in addition to Samantha, serving as, chair, Courtney, or Aaron is serving as secretary, and so Aaron's gonna focus on both those online as well as note taking, attendance taking, and so. You said you're not gonna be available for this coalition meeting.
Aaron's also at the same
Not
conference.
Same conference.
On a regular basis, she would be able to report to the coalition what's happening here.
So go back and look at the transcription
Mhm.
and take at least
I
the
just
bullet
went-
points from that.
Perfect.
Conference.
Oh, I know, I'm excited for you.
Chris, it's same day and time next week, right?
So next week is Tuesday at noon to two, we have the coalition meeting. And then Chris, on the agenda that I emailed you, December 3rd and December 10th are the next strategy committee meetings, and then after that will be the first Wednesday of the month, beginning January 7th. And then it'll just stay the first Wednesday of the month, noon to 2. If we want to add supplementary meetings because we miss each other, we can do that beginning in the new year.
Sweet, yeah, I think
So-
that works.
If you guys have follow-up questions, feel free to stick around.
Oh,
Stephanie, for this,
Stephanie, can you share the things since we won't be at the coalition meeting next week?
Yes,
The ones that were most voted on?
yes, I will, absolutely.
Okay.
No, real quick.
Oh, right now.
if anybody needs to
Like,
leave, feel free to leave if you need to leave.
Okay, so the ones that received the top votes, events, programs, and activities, expand and maintain the calendar of youth events, youth activities, day camps, workshops, leadership opportunities and engagement activities. Also under events, programs and activities, develop and launch family connection initiatives, family game nights, meals, fun playing together, conversation starters, etc. Under capacity building and resources, grow resources and capacity, including people, knowledge and skills, supplies, funding, in-kind support, and community efforts. Under capacity building and resource, deliver strategic prevention framework, Icelandic prevention model, protective factors, and resiliency trainings. Work with tribe partners to develop a shared training calendar. Under youth engagement and leadership, recognize, showcase, and celebrate youth achievements and contributions. Under youth engagement and leadership, increase youth-led and peer activities, establish youth coalition, youth council, host biannual youth feedback forums. Under outreach, communication and awareness, host quarterly briefings, town halls, and our community presentations, city council, chamber, Rotary, school board, assembly, gather feedback from them. Under infrastructure, systems and data, integrate and encourage adoption of positive youth development focused approaches, structures, practices, and policies. There's just a couple more. Under outreach and communication, establish regional outreach teams to expand programming and to expand geographical reach to outlying communities. Under partnerships and collaboration, explore continued alignment with Youth 360. And then the last one, under partnerships and collaboration, explore strategies for mental health support and suicide prevention, expand Code Blue's efforts. Are the ones that got all the main points.
Perfect.
So 6 votes or more.
Okay. Nice. Are you gonna share those at the coalition meeting?